Imagine standing on top of a mountain, exhausted, not able to take full breath, and your legs are tired, and you're somewhere on top of a peak. And reaching that peak is not very easy. It takes with one step and another and another and another, and finally you're on the top. And that step is nothing but that one change that you are putting in to reach that top. So I am not here to talk about the difficulties or how did I reach there, but I'm here to talk about that one change in all of those peaks that I have found and those little changes that I have faced and experienced that has got me on top of all the peaks that I've climbed. So I'm standing here as one of the youngest mountaineer from India, and I hold the record of being the youngest girl to scale the 4 peaks of 4 continents. And my mission is to climb the highest peaks of all the 7 continents. And I'm wondering, you must be thinking as to what age did I start climbing when I say that I'm one of the youngest mountaineer to uh, climb 4 peaks and I hold the records of being the youngest. So the first peak that I climbed was Mount Kilimanjaro, and that was at the age of 12. And that was in the year 2014, and I've submitted that on October 2nd along with my father. So Kilimanjaro is the highest peak of the continent Africa. And when I was 12, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And um, it was very different and a unique experience because I was traveling international for the very first time, and I was accompanied by my father. And it was very, very exciting because Mount Kilimanjaro is a dormant volcano that was active millions of years ago. And it was very exciting and interesting for me to go to that peak is because as a single standing mountain, it had 4 different terrains for me to cross and reach that peak that you're seeing that is in the first photo. So the first terrain that I crossed was a rainforest. How many of you all have heard that or learned that in geography? Many of us, right, in school. So crossing the rainforest was nothing but magical because as you keep walking, it only gave me an experience where you're in the mist, in between the clouds, and all tall trees that you cannot even imagine the height of what it could be. And there were hundreds of climbers all over the world, and everybody is excited on the trail to go on top of the peak. And the next terrain came was a little deserty kind of terrain that was almost arid. It was very dry and there's not much of water available and all that. So it felt very unique to be on that peak because it felt as if I was learning something that was literally out of the books. And I was privileged to understand, and it somehow helped me in my academics as well. So Kilimanjaro has taught me something where even when you are struggling, even when you are almost given up. So when I was on this peak, there was a moment where I thought that this is the end. So there it was halfway till the summit. So the summit is called the Uru Peak. If you see, it is written there, it's Uru Peak, Tanzania. So that is the highest peak that is called on Mount Kilimanjaro. So reaching that peak as well, that point, it took almost 1.5 hours for me to reach there. And by then, me as a 12-year-old girl, I crumbled down, and my hands were burning. That burning is not because of heat, but it was because of the cold, because it is negative temperature. And the hands that I had, my guides literally took out my thermos and they made my hands warm, and everybody were in tears because I was struggling. But one thing I did not do was I did not give up. I could have given up and I would have made millions of excuses saying that I cannot go any further. But because I had my dad beside me, and and it was the very first peak, and I was representing something as a Indian girl on a different continent, on a highest peak of Africa. And I went with a mission. I started climbing for a mission where I want to prove that, you know, Indian girls can achieve anything. So being that at the back of my head, I did not give up. And by the time I reached the summit, I had two guides, and they were almost in tears. It's just happy tears. And they carried me in their arms, and I just shouted on top of my lungs, even though I was exhausted. My legs were dead tired. My hands were frozen, literally frozen. But the moment I reached the peak, everything just vanished. Everything just, you know, just disappeared, because that excitement in me just eradicated all of that tiredness, exhaustion, and everything. Coming to the second peak, that's Mount Elbrus. That is the highest peak in Europe. And climbing that, it was a new experience for me, because that was the very first time that I went out of India without my father, and I traveled all by myself. And I was 13 years old back then when I went to Mount Elbrus. And I can proudly say that in the year 2015, when I went to Mount Elbrus, I created a world record of being the youngest girl in the world to climb at the age of 13. And it was one memorable climb that I had, because the Europe peak that I climbed has challenged me till the core, because as Indians, when we come to food eating, we have different taste buds, and we need a lot of spices, we need tanginess, we need sweet, and all of these things. But there, for breakfast, they gave cheese, they gave some random salad or something like that. And as a 13-year-old, I could have made a fuss. I could have made excuses that, no, I don't want to eat this. But I'm all alone there. If I make excuses, or if I make a fuss about the food that I'm getting, I won't be having the energy to climb. I will not get my strength to reach for what I came for. So I had to adapt to that meals, whatever were being served for me. So that was a different change altogether, and it is a very minute change, but it has a very big impact for my entire expedition of that 15 days that I'm away from home, away from my loved ones, away from my family members. But somehow, with the support of my group, my team members, and everybody else around me, I was successfully able to summit that peak on 31st of July 2015. And in the same year, I traveled to Australia. That was my third peak. And that also is a very emotional summit for me, because that year in 2015 was a very emotional year for me and my entire family, because that year was where my father was diagnosed with last stage of lung cancer. And it was not treatable, and that is the reason why I had to travel to Europe all alone. And 2015, by December, for Australia, my father had fought, taken treatment, done a number of things just so that he could accompany his daughter for her summit. And proudly I can say that my father has summited the Australia's highest peak, Mount Kosciuszko, along with me, despite having cancer last stage. And that is something that got into me thinking, when I am fully fit, no ailment, no medical ailment, when my father is able to battle something that is as risky as life taking, when I am all fine, fit, healthy, what is stopping me to do something more than what I'm doing right now? So apart from the highest peak that is just around 2,228 meters in height, the Mount Kosciuszko, so the mountain is called the Snowy Mountain Range in Australia, and Kosciuszko is the highest one. So just because it's a one-day hike, we decided to do 10 highest peaks of the Snowy Mountain Range in 4 days. So I have done 4 days, all the 10 peaks, and one day my father accompanied me, 2 days my father accompanied me, and the rest I went along with my guide. And here it was very interesting because there was one day where I had to go on a trail on the mountain on a mountain bike. And it was a very first experience for me because you need to go halfway and then you park your bike there and then you go to other different peaks for that particular day. And the winds were so strong. And if you see the flag, the Indian flag on the third photo on the Mount Kosciuszko, I couldn't stand on that peak. But if you do research about Mount Kosciuszko, you will see some of the photos where people are actually standing on that stone to take a summit photo. So these are called the summit photos. But I couldn't take it because the wind was very, very, very strong. So that comes the third peak, and that was when I was 14 years that I've completed Mount Kosciuszko. And the very following year, 2016, I was supposed to be attempting to climb Mount Everest, that is the highest peak in the world. So what has that taught me in real life, and what can you do about that? You just don't have to climb the mountain to, finish your summit. You can start with music, you can start with sports, you can start with public speaking, you can start with various other things. So what would be the formula for you to make that change? You can start small. If you want to get into music, start with that one chord. Start with that one tempo. If you're into sports, start with minimal training. You don't have to keep working out for hours together. It's just that 10-kilometer run. It's just a 5-kilometer run that you can start with. But you need to start. And you need to be consistent in what you are starting to do. If you're not consistent, you will not know where you need to improve. If you stop at one moment, okay, we go for one class, one hobby for 1 week, and then you say, okay, it's not for me. And then you jump onto a different hobby the next week. That also, okay, it's not for me. But you haven't given it the time, you haven't been consistent in that one particular thing to understand. So you need to be consistent in that. And always be ready and adapt to failure. You will be a failure. You have to be a failure to be where you are going to be. In all the 4 peaks also, I have finished in one attempt. But there are 2 other peaks that I've attempted, but I did not summit it. And that happened in 1 year, and there are 2 different climbs. One is Mount Everest in 2019. I had to come back from 21,000 feet, that is Camp 2, because I fell sick. And in December the same year, after I lost my dad, in December I went to South America And I had to come back because the weather was bad from the last 400 meters of the summit. I am seeing the summit right there, and I spent almost lakhs of rupees, but I had to come back. I couldn't do anything because we only have one life. And once you make a wrong decision there, your mission is gone. You cannot get that life back. So the smart decision for me was to come back and try again. And try again means come back even more stronger than what I was back then. So that is one change that I've understood, that even if you fail, it is completely fine. That is the meaning of changing, and most importantly, not just change, it's transformation. Once you fail, you'll transform into being a better person. Change is just temporary, and transformation just remains with you, and it is in you. And one last thing, don't always think that you know everything. My father has always taught me, till your last breath, don't think you're a master. The moment that you think that you know everything and you're the master in whatever you are doing, your downfall starts from there. So always be a learner. Even my father, I think, if I'm not wrong, my father passed away when he was almost 51, 52 years. And still, he would always say, whenever he's meeting, irrespective of the age, irrespective of what the other person is into, you learn something out of that person. My father, by profession, he's a mental health doctor, but yet he has always been grounded to where he came from. And irrespective of his profession, you're always grounded, and you have to be as if, okay, you are surrendering yourself to learn something new. And if you know something, there's no harm in sharing that knowledge that you have. So, what is that one small change that you are going to inculcate in your life? Thank you, and it was a pleasure being here. This is Janvi signing out. Jai Hind.